Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you ignored every quiet sign telling you something was wrong? My name is Daniel Rojas. I'm 45. I've spent 2 decades designing structures that don't collapse under pressure. But I never expected the most fragile design in my life would be my own marriage. It started on a Wednesday. I was reviewing site progress for a new residential complex outside Boston. Mid-call with a contractor, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Claudia, my wife of 10 years. Just a single line. I'm in love with someone else. I'm not coming back. No voice, no call, no conversation. Just a message. Sent from Europe. While I was organizing safety inspections and concrete delivery times, she was sending that text from a hotel suite I unknowingly paid for. Attached to the message was a photo. She was in a white robe, smiling. In the corner of the frame, a man's leather watch on the nightstand. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just froze. And that's when everything started. If you've ever had to rebuild yourself from betrayal, I want you to stay until the end. Like, comment, and join me in this story. Claudia and I met 12 years ago in a bookstore near South Station. She was browsing a shelf of travel photography books and asked me if I spoke Spanish. We talked for 20 minutes about Barcelona, her hometown, and the coastal cities I'd only seen in architecture magazines. She was vibrant, artistic, and warm. I was the opposite, measured, quiet, observant. Somehow it worked. A year later, we were married. Back then, I'd just earned my license as a senior architect. I bought a modest 3-bedroom home in a quiet Boston suburb, paid the mortgage down quickly, and handled our finances conservatively. Claudia was a freelance designer, mostly textiles and home interiors, and she loved the flexibility. She worked from cafes, traveled for creative inspiration, and made our home feel alive with color and music. For the first few years, it felt like we were building something solid. But things began to shift slowly. Claudia's creative trips became more frequent, first to New York, then to Portugal, then back to Spain. She'd return with gifts, souvenirs, photos with her sister, and stories about markets and museums. I didn't question it. We didn't have kids, and I believed in giving her freedom. She always came back, until she didn't. In the months before that message, I had been working overtime on a new sustainable housing project. Deadlines were tight. I missed dinners. I'd get home to find the house dark and her side of the bed cold. She said she was planning a family visit to Barcelona again, her 3rd trip this year. My niece is sick, she said. They need help around the house. She flew out on a Thursday, kissed me lightly at the airport drop-off, waved, smiled. That night, I checked our bank account out of habit. Claudia had withdrawn $3,200 for travel expenses. The month before, she'd spent $1,700 on something labeled gifts. I remember pausing then, dismissing it. She was generous. Maybe she was just helping family. I didn't know it yet, but that generosity came with a cost. Looking back, the silence was the first sign. We stopped laughing at night, stopped cooking together. Her phone was always face down, password changed, but she still smiled, still kissed me goodbye. And I mistook comfort for connection. I wasn't suspicious. I was asleep. 2 weeks into Claudia's trip, our 10th wedding anniversary came and went without a call, not even a message. I remember staring at the living room wall where we had our framed wedding photo, us barefoot on the beach, laughing the wind catching her hair just right. I'd made a dinner reservation at the same restaurant we celebrated our engagement. It stayed unused. The maitre d' was kind enough to cancel it for me without a charge. Maybe next year, he said. She called the next morning, said she was exhausted, that the niece had taken a bad turn, and she'd completely forgotten. Her voice was light, unbothered. She promised to bring back something special. I've already picked out a few pieces you'll love, she said. A few days later, while taking out the trash, I noticed something strange in the kitchen bin. A folded receipt, nearly torn in half, tucked inside an envelope from a Paris hotel. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. It was a bill for a $500 dinner. The date was 2 nights before our anniversary. The restaurant was in Paris, not Barcelona. The menu listed 2 entrees, a bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape, and a dessert tasting for 2. I reread the date 3 times, then sat at the kitchen table and stared at it like it might explain itself. I checked her location on the shared Find My app she'd turned off sharing. I hadn't noticed. That same afternoon, I checked our joint bank account again. Another withdrawal, $1,500 labeled as emergency transfer, and the credit card a $2,800 charge from a boutique hotel in the 8th arrondissement. I wanted to call her, demand answers. But something held me back. Instead, I opened her Instagram. Carefully curated photos, flowers on balconies, art installations, croissants, handwritten captions about quiet mornings and grateful reflection. Not a single person in any of them. Just places, objects, vibes. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed the last few months in loops. Claudia's increasing distance, her growing preoccupation with her phone, the subtle deflections when I asked about expenses, the late-night video calls where her camera stayed pointed at the ceiling. Bad connection, she'd say. I stopped trying to convince myself it was nothing. I began to notice other things. A new suitcase in our storage closet, one I didn't recognize. Expensive perfume I hadn't smelled before. A piece of jewelry tucked into the back of her drawer, still in its box. The logo wasn't familiar. I looked it up. A designer boutique in Paris, one that didn't ship internationally. That was the night I opened a new folder on my computer. I labeled it, quietly, Claudia. Watch. And for the first time in my life, I started paying attention to more than structure. I started studying patterns. Once I started looking, everything began fitting together like misplaced puzzle pieces, clicking into place. Every trip she took, whether it was to Spain, Portugal, or a design retreat, aligned with significant withdrawals from our joint account. Claudia had always brushed off my questions about money. It's just family stuff, she'd say, or you wouldn't understand, it's a cultural thing. I wanted to believe her. For years I had. But now the evidence was undeniable, and I had proof. I went back 3 years through our statements. Every international trip matched a spike in cash outflows, $2, $100 here, $3,600 there. Gifts, health emergencies, supplies, always vague, always round numbers. One evening, I remembered something odd, an old MacBook she used to edit design portfolios. She hadn't touched it in over a year. It was tucked under a bookshelf collecting dust. I powered it on more out of instinct than plan. To my surprise, it wasn't password protected. Most of the files were unremarkable mood boards, half-finished design pitches, but one folder caught my eye. Papel illuze. Inside were scanned documents, handwritten letters, and dozens of screenshots from a WhatsApp thread, Claudia and someone saved as A. The messages were in French. I don't speak French, but I know Google Translate. The first one I opened stopped my breath. Tu es mon avenir. Dès que c'est fini, je suis à toi. You are my future. As soon as it's over, I'm yours. Another one. A few weeks later, he suspects nothing. I've told him I need more time to help my family. Start looking at places in Lyon. I want to live near the gardens. But it wasn't just love notes. There were spreadsheets, budget breakdowns, a list titled Post-Divorce Plan with columns estimating how much she could claim in the settlement house, equity retirement accounts, even my life insurance policy. I felt the room tilt. Claudia wasn't escaping a bad marriage. She was engineering an exit strategy, one that left her financially comfortable and emotionally spotless. And I was the silent investor funding her second life. I didn't yell. I didn't call her. I didn't even cry. I opened my secure email account, one I hadn't used in years. I began uploading files. Then I opened a new checking account at a separate bank. I rerouted my direct deposit and withdrew half of what remained in our joint savings. I left just enough to avoid suspicion. If she was going to play this as a game of strategy, I would play it better. I've spent 20 years designing structures to withstand pressure failure, even fire. Now I was designing a different kind of structure, a defense system for everything she was trying to take. And I wasn't going to lose. That night, I slept less than 3 hours, but when I woke up, I didn't feel broken. I felt alert, focused, like I'd finally stepped into the truth I'd been avoiding. Claudia wasn't confused. She wasn't drifting. She was calculating, and I had to be smarter than her if I wanted to protect what I'd built. By noon, I was sitting across from Camila Reyes, a seasoned divorce attorney in Boston who specialized in complex financial separations. Her office was sleek, all glass walls and stone surfaces. She didn't offer small talk, just motioned to the chair and said, "Tell me everything." I did, from the dinner receipt in the trash to the spreadsheets on Claudia's laptop. Camilla's eyes stayed calm the entire time, but I saw the glint in them when I mentioned the international wire transfers and the deleted messages. "You're lucky you came to me before she filed," she said, leaning forward. "Whoever files first often controls the narrative and the assets." Her advice was swift and surgical. First, she told me to collect and organize every shred of financial evidence, bank statements, emails, screenshots, photos, timestamps. Second, she recommended I freeze the line of credit tied to our home to prevent Claudia from borrowing against it. Third, she had me authorize her firm to prepare a motion for emergency asset protection just in case Claudia tried to drain what was left. Then came the name that would change everything, Armand Moreau. I had mentioned his first name from the WhatsApp messages. Camila paused, opened her laptop, and searched a few databases. 10 minutes later, we had a partial profile. Armand was a failed luxury realtor, originally from Marseille, with no fixed income and several failed ventures behind him. He'd filed for bankruptcy in 2018. No home, no company, no stability. "He's not just a lover," Camila said. "He's a liability. And she's funding him with your money." That's when we brought in Elena Price, a digital forensics consultant. She would validate the authenticity of Claudia's messages, the financial data, and geotags on images. If we were going to win in court, we'd need airtight evidence. Every hour that week was strategy. I updated passwords, transferred retirement accounts to a protected trust. Not illegal, Camila assured me, because the divorce hadn't been filed yet. We were ahead. Barely. I didn't feel like a man getting revenge. I felt like a man regaining control over a collapsing structure. This wasn't about punishing Claudia. This was about protecting myself from the woman I thought I knew. The woman who had shared my bed, my plans, my name, and who now viewed me as a financial stepping stone to a life with someone else. She wanted to leave. Fine. But she would leave with nothing I hadn't chosen to give. 2 weeks later, Claudia received a knock on the door of a Paris apartment rented under my name. According to the private courier report, she opened the door wearing a silk robe and looked confused when handed a sealed envelope. Inside was a full divorce petition filed in Massachusetts, complete with evidence of marital misconduct, financial fraud, and intentional deception. She didn't message me, didn't call. But 3 hours later, I received a notification she'd tried to access our joint investment account. Luckily, it was already frozen. Camila had submitted emergency protective orders the morning the courier left Boston. By the time Claudia read the petition, she legally couldn't move a dollar without alerting the court. She must have thought I'd crumble, that I'd fall into silence or shame. But I wasn't the same man who used to overlook red flags and smile through discomfort. I was now documenting every cent, every timestamp, every lie. Camila began building what she called our scorched earth file, a legal compilation so damning it would leave Claudia with nothing to bargain with. We included screenshots of Armand asking her, "When does the house become ours?" Proof of her transferring over $30,000 in joint funds to foreign accounts over a 6-month period. Copies of her messages painting me as emotionally abusive on social media, despite text messages from the same time showing her asking me to plan our anniversary trip. Records of me covering her business expenses, medical bills for her family, and even a failed design course she enrolled in during our marriage. Camilla's tone was firm. This isn't just a betrayal, it's a coordinated financial exit, and the court won't treat it lightly. Meanwhile, Claudia was still pretending. Her Instagram was filled with sunlit croissants, blurry balcony selfies, vague quotes about growth and clarity. No mention of the man behind the camera. No mention of Armand. No mention of me. But we were watching everything. Elena, our digital analyst, managed to match timestamps between Claudia's Paris charges and Armand's own check-ins on social platforms. They weren't even careful. We had visual confirmation of them at the same cafes, same hotel lobbies moments apart. Then came the final blow. We traced a bank wire from Claudia's account to Armand's Airbnb host in Lyon, a 6-week stay fully paid up front. A note attached read, "For our next chapter." They weren't planning a fling. They were building a future with money she told me was going to her sister's medical care. Camilla smiled when I showed her the transfer. This, she said, is what judges love. It's calculated, it's manipulative, it's everything we need to prove financial misconduct. I didn't feel joy. I felt something colder, something sharper. This wasn't about watching her suffer. It was about making sure the version of events she told the world didn't go unchallenged. And if Claudia thought she had scripted the ending of our marriage, she was about to find out how wrong she'd been, because this time I was writing the final act. The hearing was scheduled for a Monday morning at the Suffolk County Family Court. Camilla had insisted on filing in Massachusetts, not only because it was my legal residence, but because state law strongly penalized financial misconduct and desertion during marriage. We wanted jurisdiction on our side, and we had it. Claudia flew in 3 days before the hearing. I didn't see her in person until we entered the courtroom. She walked in wearing a fitted black dress, her hair perfectly styled, flanked by 2 attorneys she'd somehow managed to hire. Armand wasn't with her. I wasn't surprised. He had disappeared from her social media the day the petition was filed. The judge, an older woman named Harriet Loomis, was known for her zero-tolerance policy toward manipulation in divorce proceedings. Camilla had briefed me thoroughly. Stay calm. Stay quiet. Let the documents speak. Claudia's lead attorney opened with an emotional plea. Your Honor, my client endured years of emotional neglect. She sought companionship abroad after being isolated in a one-sided marriage. Her actions, while perhaps misguided, were driven by unmet needs and loneliness. Judge Loomis didn't blink. Is that a legal defense for international asset transfers? Camilla stood. In her hands was a thick folder, color-coded, indexed, time-stamped. The past 3 months of investigation prepared like blueprints. She walked the court through the evidence slowly, a timeline of Claudia's trips, cross-referenced with large cash withdrawals. Itemized expenses on our joint credit cards, including luxury hotels, designer boutiques, and private dining, all matching days when she told me she was with family. Email threads discussing our finances with Armand, including calculations of her expected divorce settlement. Bank records of money wired to Armand's host in Lyon, labeled rent. Then she delivered the final sequence, Claudia's public social media posts accusing me of being emotionally abusive, followed by private text messages written days later, thanking me for always being so patient. The courtroom was silent. Claudia's attorneys tried to pivot. This isn't about the money, one said. This is about emotional harm. The marriage was already broken. Judge Loomis held up one hand. Counselor, your client drained over $30,000 in marital funds to support another man while still legally married. She fabricated medical emergencies, lied about her location, and attempted to defame her husband online. This court is not here to explore emotional dissatisfaction. We are here to address facts. The ruling was swift. Claudia was denied any claim to the house, my pension, or our shared investments. The court ordered her to repay $40,550 in misused marital funds plus partial legal fees for the financial damage inflicted. Any remaining equity from shared assets would be withheld until repayment began. She stood still. For the first time, she didn't speak. Outside the courtroom, I walked past her without a word. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I finally understood I didn't need to. This wasn't about shouting or punishing or proving myself. It was about reclaiming the truth. And in that courtroom with nothing but facts, the truth stood taller than any story she had tried to tell. 3 months after the ruling, the house was officially mine. The deed that titled the keys, everything had been reissued in my name alone. I didn't waste time. I sold it within 6 weeks to a young couple expecting their first child. When they asked if I'd had good memories there, I smiled and said, some. I left out the rest. With part of the proceeds, I bought a 2-bedroom cottage in New Hampshire, quiet, surrounded by pine and frost in the winter. No shared walls, no half-packed suitcases in the closet, no lingering scent of a perfume I didn't buy. Just space, peace, my own rhythm. The rest of the money went into investments I controlled. Camilla connected me with a new financial planner, someone discreet, detail-obsessed. The trust we set up now protects all of my major assets. Everything I build from this point on stays under my name. No cosigners, no blind spots. Claudia tried to contact me twice. The first was a letter sent to my old office, an apology full of metaphors and selective memory. The second came as a forwarded email from Camilla. Her new lawyer was requesting a reduced payment plan for the restitution. She's struggling, the message read. She's moved back to her mother's apartment outside Girona and is looking for work. I didn't respond. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. You can only rebuild a life when you stop trying to repair the fantasy that broke you. I picked up new routines, morning hikes, weekend drives. I started teaching an advanced design seminar at a local college. Students half my age asked real questions. They respected details. I found that refreshing. Occasionally, Claudia's name would come up in conversations with old friends. I never corrected the rumors. People believe what they want, and the truth, it has a way of lasting longer than whispers. As for Armand, he vanished as quickly as he arrived. Our investigator confirmed he left Claudia within a month of the court decision. No more fancy dinners, no more prepaid apartments. According to a mutual friend, he was last seen working at a rental car booth near the airport in Lyon. Some endings don't need revenge. They end themselves. I kept one photo, Claudia and I, from years ago, standing in front of a cathedral in Lisbon. She's laughing, holding my arm. I don't feel anger when I see it. I feel distance, like I'm looking at someone else's life. Because in a way, I am. The life I have now isn't louder. It isn't flashier. But it's honest, solid, and finally mine. This story isn't just about infidelity. It's about clarity, about what happens when you finally stop excusing patterns that quietly erode your peace. Daniel's story reminds us that emotional betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it moves silently through our trust disguised as love concern or even family obligations. But when you follow the data instead of the drama, the truth always surfaces. And here's the real lesson. The strongest form of revenge is never destruction. It's precision. It's choosing documentation over confrontation, boundaries over begging, and walking away with your dignity, your name, and your future fully intact. Whether you've lived something similar or you just needed a reminder that not all losses are defeats, take this with you. Protecting yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. I've been there too, and I came out stronger. You never know who needs to hear that, and if you found value in this story, share it with someone who needs perspective. Like, subscribe. Stay for the stories that rebuild you, not just the ones that break you, because sometimes the cleanest exits lead to the most honest rebuilds.